You can really use the curves filter to modify your image. Today, we're going to use the curves filter to go from this to this, all with one filter. Let's go. Here we are with the original image. If you would like to follow along with this tutorial, check the description box below. You'll find the link to the Unsplash collection that has this photo inside of it. Now, we're not going to touch any of the develop module presets or settings. We're just going to jump straight into effects because I only want to use the curves filter, and I'm going to show you the power of ON1 using just one filter. So we're going to go ahead and hit add filter and select the curves filter. Now, if you're not familiar with curves, I'll give you a very quick rundown. So it's pure black, shadow area, mid-tone area, highlights, and then pure whites. In order for us to get started, what I like to do is set my canvas, and that just means I'm going to darken the entire image. In order for me to do that, I'm going to grab this center area and just pull it down into this little quadrant here. You can pull this in whichever direction or whichever quadrant you want to pull it into, but because most of my adjustments are going to happen up here, I just go opposite of that quadrant. That's my personal feeling. And I'm actually going to stop it right at this little intersecting point. And that may be too much. We'll find out here in a little bit. I'll come back and modify this. So we'll rename this darken. And I like to just let myself know that that's my darkened canvas. So now I'm going to hit add filter. We're going to add another curve. And now I am just going to pull this up. So remember, I mentioned that I stopped at this point here. The reason why I want to know which point I stopped at is so as I'm adding in the light, if I go above that, then I know that I'm adding double the amount, essentially double the amount of light that I removed. All right. So this is equal to the amount of light that I removed. So that's going to be the original of the image. And then if I pull this up, now I've added in double the amount of light. And this isn't an exact measurement. This is just something for me to visually know what I'm doing with the image. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions or if you use this same type of method. Now, what I'm going to do on this particular edit is I'm looking at modifying just the shadow areas of the image. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, I want to see how bright I want these shadow areas to get. And I'm just going to pull this down a little bit because I don't want too much light added back into those shadow areas because I kind of like the moody, dramatic look. All right. So now that I have that going there, I'm going to hit the gear icon. This is going to be a place that we're going to spend a lot of time in throughout this tutorial, so just get familiar with hitting this gear icon to open up your blend options. We're going to come down to this section that says highlight, shadows, and skin. If you pull this slider to the right, you're going to be removing that edit from whatever tone it says. So if I pull this shadow to the right, I'm removing the highlight or this light adjustment from the shadow area. And if I pull it to the pull the highlights to the right, then I'm removing the shadow adjustment from the highlights area. What I'm going to do is, because I want this to be a darker kind of edit, I want to pull this away from the shadows, and you can see my overall edit is starting to get dark, and that's okay. It sounds counterproductive, but it'll make sense as we start to add more layers of this. And I'm just going to leave that like so. I'm going to click on my mask icon now. I'm going to invert this. This gets me back to my original dark image. And with a brush, and you can have your opacity wherever you want, I'm going to leave it at 50% because I want to make this tutorial move by a little bit smoother. So I'm just going to leave it at 50% with a feather of 100 and a flow of 100. And all I'm going to do is paint in light and resize my brush as I see fit. And the reason why I like having my brush at 50% is because I can get different dynamics in the light. As you can see, if if I hit the letter O, I have just a little bit of light over in this area, and then it's really bright here, really bright there, or the adjustment is stronger in those areas. And that comes in really, really handy. Now, I want the driver to kind of show through, so I'm going to click on him once, click on him twice, and I'm going to come back and modify him some more because I do want him to be a little bit brighter. And then I'm just going to click on the license plate here 2 times, 3 times, yeah. All right, so that's all that I want to do with this base edit, because everywhere else where I'm looking at the photo and I see shadows, I don't think I see anything else that needs to be brightened up. Maybe some of these signs. So let's just brighten up this sign here. And these are all subtle adjustments and they build on top of each other. And then we'll also brighten up this sign, make that kind of pop through. We'll throw a little bit of flare on this sign. That sign is already pretty bright, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not worried about these people in the background because the main subject is this taxi driver right here in the car. And maybe we'll brighten up these little areas here. And this is all up to you and what your creative, artistic look is going, or whatever you're going for in your own creative look. So I'm just going to pull this out a little bit, and I think that's good. So now what we're going to do is call this shadow edit 1, and we're going to create another curves filter, and we are going to pull up just a little bit further this time. And I think I'm going to actually go over into this quadrant, and we're going to remove this from the shadows, but this time not as much, right? Because if I pull it all the way, then it's not really doing anything. The last time I didn't really look at where we were, but I know that probably somewhere around here is going to be okay. Turn this off and on, just looking at the areas that I want to work in. And this is the way that I like to work, at least. Is I look at it over the entire image and then I say, okay, where do I want to mask that in? And then I go do that. And I'll show you a different option. If you like to edit where you're looking at the full effect and then you just want to mask out all of the areas where you want your effect to go, you can do it this way. So I mentioned earlier that I want to make this driver brighter. So what I'm going to do is actually make him darker right now. And it seems counterintuitive. All right. The other area that I think I'll make a little bit brighter is maybe this sign. So I'll give that one more click. And then this sign right here, I'll make that a little bit brighter. And, you know, I think it'll be cool to make this, this pothole or manhole, whatever this thing is called, a little bit brighter. So we'll do that. All right. And I'll give it another pass just so that way it really stands out. Now, right now I made everything darker. I also need to get this license plate, and I also want to start working on the lights. I didn't work on the lights the last image, but this image I want to work on the lights. So we'll do that. Okay. So now that I have all of the areas that I want to brighten up in my image, all I have to do is click on the mask and hit invert, and it's going to swap those areas. So you can see I now have this manhole cover a lot brighter, and this these lights are a little bit brighter. This driver is a little bit brighter. Sorry, I still had it on paint out, so we'll paint that back in. So we're starting to see the driver, and hopefully that made sense that you just invert what you want. But for me personally, I like to start with a darker image and then ask myself, what do I want to have brighter? So with this, that's too bright. We'll take that down. And I think that that works for this particular pass. So now we'll call this shadow 2, add another curves filter. And this is where we start to focus on brightening up the rest of the image. And this, I really don't have a preference on how I do this, but I'll just pull up here, and I like to call this my midtone edit. As long as I'm on the right side of this center line, then I'm okay, because they're like the mid highlights, if that makes sense. And that's what I want to start editing in the photo, because that's where I start to see some of the detail on the side of the taxi here. And then this area kind of comes to life in the image. This area I'll have to modify sparingly. And then I also want to make this sign over here look pretty cool. And, you know, I forgot to mention, I am going for a more cinematic type of look. So we're going to go ahead and remove this from the shadow just a little bit. No, we'll remove it. We won't remove it from anything. We'll just leave it as it is with the shadows being removed at 8. We'll hit this little mask icon. We're going to invert that. And now I am going to paint this in over the areas that I said I wanted to paint this into. I like how it brought this little area to life. So I'm just going to paint that there. We're going to paint over this sign. And you can see how I just have complete control over what things are lit in my image. And this is what I really enjoy about this technique. And then I also like what it was doing over here. We'll get this sign right there. And then I really like this red sign, or this lantern. We'll get that one there. And then we'll come over the lights again, because I want these lights to really shine through. And then I know that we need to get the hood of the car, and that one's going to need another pass. And then we'll click on the driver one more time. I think that really helps him pop, because if this was a cinematic look, this would be the subject. And, you know, maybe we're telling the story about this guy in the car. I don't fully know. And then, you know, you may want to brighten up where he's driving into. So that way, you know, just food for thought. All right. So we're going to call this Midtone Edit 1. And I don't know if I'm going to do another Midtone edit, because my next edit is really just going to be for the entire image. And I'm going to really bring out some of this this detail on the hood of the car, the side of the taxi. I'm going to probably hit these people back here one more time, because they're waving. You know, I'm just making up a story. But that is essentially what I want to do. So we're going to go ahead and invert this. And I am going to paint this in over the hood, like I just mentioned, and the side of the vehicle. I'm going to get this whole area right here, maybe even come across this way. Got to get the taxi cab light at the top. We'll come over these people. And if you notice, I made a small brush and then a big brush. And what that helps with is disbursement of the light. So making smaller brushes and then larger brushes, it just makes it a little bit easier to really evenly dispose of the light, or, you know, share the light across your image. And this is nighttime, so these would naturally have a glow. And since I'm not using the glow filter to make these glow, I'm just gonna hit it with a bunch of light and filter it through like so. And then I think I'm gonna just do a big pass across the road there. And now this shot is really starting to come to life. Let me go ahead and show you the before. This is the original image, and this is what we've gotten so far. I've really darkened this area down, because if you look over here, it's a lot brighter. The driver is not well lit, but now the driver is well lit, and it looks intentional that he's supposed to be lit. Maybe we'll get this license plate again, and we'll get the front of the vehicle, because there should be some glare coming off of those lights. And I think we got what we need on that. And you can see I really brought those lights back to life, because the lights are pretty dull, underexposed. And now with this new lighting scenery, it's really good. So this is where you could stop. And I'm just going to call this Midtone 2, because this was another Midtone edit. Then I'm going to hit add filter. We're going to add another curves. This time I am going to do just highlights, and these are like the brightest of the bright areas. We're going to remove this from shadows because I don't want this to impact any of my shadows, and we'll pull it down from skins just a little bit, or skin tones. And then what I'm going to do is invert this, and I'm going to paint this in at 100% opacity this time, in the areas where I really want the brightest areas to pop. All right, there's probably some highlights on him that'll help him out a little bit. Again, these things, these little lanterns, I'm good with those getting a little bit brighter. Maybe we'll hit this guy in the background. I don't know, just give a little bit of interest to the background, because, you know, sometimes when you watch a movie, there's things in the backgrounds that are Easter eggs, and it's just kind of fun to find those. So we'll go with that. And I wonder if there's some highlights across the hood. Yeah, there we go. And we'll get the side here. We'll come up over the top. I really like what it's doing with this car. And I need to make one more adjustment to get the grill of the car just a little bit brighter. So we'll call this highlights. And I know I keep changing the way that I'm naming things, but bear with me. And this time I'm gonna just pull that all the way up like so. We'll come here, invert, and I'm gonna just run this. I'm gonna bring my opacity down. We'll go about 56. And run that right across the front there. So now the car is evenly lit, and I think I also need to hit this sign. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. Okay, so there's the before, and here is the after with all of the adjustments I just made. All right, it's a lot more dynamic, it's more dramatic, and in my opinion, it just looks a little bit better. So we'll just call it light up. I don't know what it really should be called. Now, again, this is where you could stop, but you can go one step further using the curves filter, and you can add in a color grade. So the shot right now is really, really blue. And the way that you can fix this is by going to the blue channel and then pulling down on the blues, and now the shot is a little bit more yellow and it's warmer, and you know that gives it that film look. All right, now if it's too much, you can then go into the green channel and give it the opposite of green, which should be magenta, and now you start to really change the color tones. And this particular image really lends itself well to this style of manipulating inside of the curves. And then if you need a little bit more red, if you want to add green, you can pull down on the reds, or if you need a little bit more red in the shot to make it pop a little bit, then that's cool, right? You can do that with the red channel. So this is without the curves module. This is with the color grade curves module. And then of course, what I want to do is give it that faded look a little bit, because that's kind of my style. I really do like that. But I also want to contrast it just a touch and maybe do something like that. And now you have this nighttime shot that looks very drastically different than the original. You can really pay attention to the driver here. And I did all of this using just curves. Now, what you can also do with the color grade one, gotta name that. If I hit the gear icon, I can come to my blend options, and you can just mess around with blending in your color grade. So if you want to go something that's a little cyberpunk, there you go, color burn. Or if you want to use something that looks a little bit more like a well-lit movie, go with darker color. Then you can come down into screen. And if you do this, let me just go ahead and select screen. If you do that, you definitely want to pull down on the opacity. But that gives it that blue look again. And if that fits your style and what you're going for, then you can absolutely do that. But when I was messing around with this, I think I found one of these worked a little bit better for me. And you know what? Let's try linear light. Like I tell you guys all the time, the second time that I re-edit a photo using the exact same techniques, I always find something different. And here's one where the linear light mode, what it's doing is it's giving a little bit more contrast. It did reintroduce that blue look to the image overall, but look at how it just kind of makes it a more dramatic photo. And I kind of like that because I like dramatic photos. And if I need to warm it up a little bit more, I can always come back into the blue channel and pull this to my heart's content. And, you know, maybe I need to add in some more red. So go opposite of green. And now I'm getting that magenta look. You know, you could just, I could sit here all day and edit this particular image using just the curves module and jumping around. Hopefully you found some value in today's content. If you did, smash the like button and consider subscribing. My name's Chris. I make content centered around photo editing and ON1 Photo Raw. I'd love to have you here on the channel as a subscriber, as well as over on my website, freewillphotos.com. You can sign up for a free account over there, start sharing your work and discussing things in the members community. Now, if you want to get ON1 Photo Raw because you don't have it already, if you want to save 20% when you pick it up, you can type in freewillphotos20 at checkout, and that'll save you 20% on any purchase of a standalone or the plugins pack. And it also saves you some money on the subscriptions. So if you don't have ON1 2023 and that's something you want to pick up, consider using that code. It is an affiliate code and it helps me continue making content here for the channel. So if you got questions, I would love to hear them down in the comment section below, and let me know what you're doing with the curves module, or the curves filter, I should say. Until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.